Prince Harry's ongoing descent into total madness has continued overnight.
You know, my jaw dropped. 2 effing grifters. So...
For months, maybe even years, the same question has been hanging over Meghan and Harry. If the Invictus Games spent more than $63 million, where did all that money actually go? Then came the moment many people had been waiting for. The documents were finally released. But what showed up in those records left a lot of people scratching their heads. We're talking about blacked out pages, missing information, and entire sections hidden under personal data and commercial sensitivity exemptions. In simple terms, the information exists, but the public still isn't getting the complete picture.
Why would there be so many redactions? Why would anything need to be honestly redacted? This is a charity form. Oh, look at that whole page redacted around the budget. Like, excuse me? How does he allowed to get away with this? But look at this budget commercial blocked out.
And that sparks an obvious question. What is so sensitive about the Invictus funding that it requires this much redaction? Even though large portions of the records were hidden, the available details still reveal parts of the story. By connecting the scattered information, a clearer picture starts to emerge.
Harry blasted the guy's a hypocrite!
When the final financial report was published, many expected it would show that most of the money went directly towards supporting veterans and related programs. Instead, they found something quite different. Before we get into the newer details that have only recently surfaced, it's worth quickly revisiting information we've already covered on this channel, because it helps put everything else into context.
There is something not sitting right with this charity. Charities that have something to hide should not be trusted, especially with so much NGO fraud being exposed in the last few years.
According to the official financial report for the 2025 Invictus Games in Vancouver and Whistler, the event operated with a total budget of roughly 63.2 million Canadian dollars. About $30 million came from taxpayers, while another $28.4 million came from sponsors, corporate partners, and donors. The remaining income came from ticket sales, merchandise, and other event-related sources.
Somehow, this balloons from an event that cost $1 million the first year they did it to $63 million now. Harry has ballooned the budget from $1 million. It cost $1 million to do it with 400 people. It's now $63 million with an extra 140 people. What the
But this is where the debate starts to heat up. When people examined the spending breakdown, they found that approximately $57.7 million was allocated to event operations. That's nearly the entire $63 million budget. That spending category covered accommodations, catering, workforce costs, technology, broadcasting, ceremonies, marketing, event villages, and administrative expenses.
Invictus funds were directed towards private jets, 5-star hotels, and transportation for Harry and Meghan.
Meanwhile, only about $5.5 million was directed into what was described as a long-term legacy fund, designed to support programs before, during, and after the games. So, does that mean roughly $57 million went toward hotels, travel, production costs, and event operations? While only about $5 million was set aside for long-term veteran-focused programs?
But is it really a charity project at all? Is it just being used as a money-making scheme? Dodgy involvement from the disgraceful Duke.
If veterans were truly at the center of the event, many people have asked why such a large share of the budget appeared to go toward running the games themselves, rather than directly supporting veteran services.
So, also, it doesn't pay for the veterans' transportation or insure them. I mean, what is this paying for?
The insurance thing is insane.
It is.
Insurance.
Lots of private jets, lots of camera crews, lots of security, a documentary, beautiful fashion, of course, from Meghan. 5-star hotels they stay in. I wonder, I mean, somebody is doing it. There's an audit being done on the $63 million right now. I think this is going to turn out very, very badly.
At the same time, the financial structure becomes even more complicated when different figures appear under different categories. Some costs are listed as event delivery, others as charitable activity, while additional expenses are recorded as operational spending. That matters because the same expense can sometimes appear in different parts of the reporting system depending on how it is classified, and those classifications can have a major impact on how efficient the organization appears on paper.
When they said Invictus is a scam, the veterans are being used for PR, privately funded faux trips with lavish accommodations, and Meghan's merchandising schemes. That's not how charities work.
So even when the numbers are technically disclosed, the way they are divided across multiple categories makes it difficult for the public to make straightforward comparisons. And that's really the heart of the issue. It's not necessarily about one missing figure or a single unexplained expense. It's about a financial structure where money flows through multiple entities, categories, and jurisdictions. When that happens, the discussion shifts from simple costs to something much bigger, transparency. Because the more layers that get added to the structure, the harder it becomes to track exactly where money moves and where it eventually lands.
We, here in the United Kingdom, have committed £26 million. I mean, we are broke. We're broke. And what? He's got £4 million worth of sponsors. I mean, Paula, what else is he doing? Like, seriously, Harry, this is your full-time gig and you're asking the taxpayers for 26 mil and you've only been able to come up with 4 mil. It's a disaster. And this is a guy who claims that he's all about philanthropy and all about humanitarian causes. Well, he's not, because actually that's what you need to do. You need to drum up the money to do good works.
Many people started doing their own math. The Vancouver Whistler Games featured just over 500 competitors from 23 nations. Based on the overall budget, some observers estimated that the total cost worked out to well over 100,000 Canadian dollars per participant. Yes, per participant.
They seem to be in the pocket of the Sussex public relations machine, which is ruthless and relentless and never sleeps.
But many veterans have said they still covered a number of their own expenses. That means they weren't each receiving anything close to $100,000 individually. So naturally, people began asking where the rest of the money was spent.
I don't think a lot of veterans actually are devastated. The reality is, if you go deeper into Invictus, a lot of veterans are actually more upset, asking where all the money actually goes to.
On paper, the Invictus Games Foundation presents a very polished message. According to its reporting, around 92% of spending goes toward charitable activities. At first glance, that claim sounds incredibly impressive, almost impossible to question. But the real story lies in what those words actually mean. Because in this case, charitable activities does not automatically mean direct support for veterans, rehabilitation services, or grants sent to organizations working on the ground.
But the term charitable activities includes the cost of running the games themselves, not direct grants or services to veterans. And the problem is that us here in the UK, us taxpayer fools, are committing funds to this. I can't believe this.
The definition is much broader than many people might assume. It also includes the cost of running the Invictus Games themselves. The production, ceremonies, logistics, events, infrastructure, and the overall staging of the competition all fall within that category. In other words, a significant portion of that reported 92% can be linked to absolutely everything. So while the percentage sounds like proof of strong efficiency, it doesn't necessarily show how much money ultimately reaches veteran organizations through direct funding.
And Harry and Meghan got a really nice vacation out of it, with lots of adorational speeches and clapping and crowds gathered for them. So it was really odd. But I do think that people are starting to cotton on.
And that's an important distinction. Because a headline figure like 92% can give the appearance of complete transparency while still leaving unanswered questions about where specific funds are actually going.
This is the very reason why everyone who originally worked on and set up Invictus no longer works there. Since leaving the royal fold, the foundation has become a cash cow for Harry and Meghan, and no doubt some others who are involved. It's all bubbling to the surface.
Another point attracting attention involves grants to veteran organizations. Earlier reports referenced grant totals of roughly £530,000, while later figures appear closer to £200,000, a decrease of about 63%.
But people are a little upset about where the money is going because right now there's been a 63% drop in actual grants to wounded warriors, despite the fact that they have more money in their bank than ever from carryover. And in Vancouver,
That contrast between overall event spending and direct grants is one of the main reasons people continue examining the numbers more closely. The question emerging from all of this is simple, yet difficult to ignore. When tens of millions of dollars are flowing into a global charity-branded event, why do the direct funding figures for veteran organizations appear comparatively small? And what accounts for the difference between those totals?
And this is the same Prince Harry who was previously running and is now on the board of a charity called African Parks, which has been accused of the worst abuses of tribes in Africa. Now, that's not Harry doing that. The stuff is being alleged within that charity on his watch. Then you've got Invictus, which is losing sponsors, including Boeing, on his watch.
At the same time, total foundation income reportedly increased by around 41%. So more money was coming in, while the figures tied to direct grants appeared to move in the opposite direction. And the issue isn't only whether money is missing. The bigger question is how the money moves through the system in the first place. On paper, the Invictus Games are operating with a budget of roughly $63 million. A major share of that funding, about $30 million, comes from taxpayers. That's a huge amount of money by any measure. But the important detail is that the money doesn't move directly from funding sources to veterans. Instead, it passes through several layers. First, organizing bodies, event management teams, infrastructure projects, logistics, production, security, branding, and other operational areas.
Crucially, that public money didn't flow directly to the games. It was routed through the Vancouver Whistler Games Corporation, which then paid a licensing fee to the Invictus Games Foundation, the British charity that owns and licenses the games brand. The amount of that licensing fee was oddly redacted. I sense a cover-up.
And that's where some people begin raising questions. When most people hear the phrase veteran-focused event, they naturally assume that a large portion of the funding goes directly toward veterans and veteran organizations. Yet the figures being discussed appear to paint a more complicated picture.
Chaotic and bad stuff is happening on his watch. And in the corporate world, normally that's when you fall, that the boss has to step down when bad stuff happens. But not Harry, of course. He's far too important for that.
Reported direct grants to veteran organizations sit at around £200,000, a relatively small amount when compared with overall spending that reaches into the tens of millions. So rather than a straightforward path from funding to veteran support, what emerges is a multi-layered financial structure where money moves between organizers, event operations, and foundation accounts.
£200,000 go toward the vets. £200,000 out of $63 million.
Prince Harry remains a central figure in the discussion because his name is closely linked to the Invictus brand, its public image, and the expectations attached to it. Once that connection exists, the conversation naturally expands beyond accounting and into larger questions about trust, transparency, and what the numbers represent behind the scenes.
That was never my understanding of what the Invictus Games was about. If that's the case, why is Harry not competing himself? Because trust me, he's mentally scarred for a whole load of reasons, But the problem is, Paula, he is going to cling onto this for dear life.
The documents also indicate that a new senior executive position has been added, reportedly carrying a six-figure salary. At the same time, cash reserves have grown to roughly $2.3 million. That means more money is being retained within the organization rather than immediately flowing outward.
Basically, the British taxpayers are footing the bill because no corporates in the United Kingdom want to be involved with Prince Harry, as Dr. Sophie Chandoka of Centre Bali had previously made clear to him.
And the questions don't stop there. Legal expenses have reportedly increased significantly, rising from amounts in the tens of thousands to roughly $150,000. While detailed public explanations for that increase remain limited. Viewed individually, Each of these developments may have a reasonable explanation, but when they're examined together, a pattern begins catching people's attention. More income, less direct distribution, higher internal expenses, larger reserves, greater financial complexity.
So I think the public interest is waning. And also in this time of economic disparity, people really want to know where their money is going to. And there are lots of other places that actually support veterans, may give them prosthetics if they need, may build a wheelchair ramp at their home, which is necessary, may do things that really help people as opposed to helping Harry's ego.
And that's where the big question starts gaining momentum. When an organization is bringing in more money than ever, yet the figures tied to direct support appear to be shrinking, people naturally want to know why.
Legal fees jumped from £45,000 to £155,000 with no explanation given. Deferred income ballooned fourfold from £431,000 to £1.799 million. An American for-profit company called June's LLC, with no description of purpose, received nearly £30,000 in 2023 and nothing in 2024. And the same filing contains two different company registration numbers, one on the cover page, another on the balance sheet.
Before we go any further, it's important to remember that just last month, Prince Harry received major recognition when Time magazine placed him at the very top of its Time 100 Sports Leaders list. Not simply included, not just featured, ranked #1 in the leaders category.
So he's #1 on the most influential figure in sport 2026 with some kind of imaginary leadership role. I mean, this is a guy that couldn't lead a Boy Scout group, could he? I wouldn't trust him to lead a dog. He couldn't lead a horse to water, let alone.
The magazine presented him as a major global influence in sports through his work with the Invictus Games, placing him ahead of some of the biggest names in athletics, including LeBron James, Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, and dozens of other internationally recognized figures.
Quite clearly, Time magazine have been infected with the MMV, the Meghan mind virus.
On paper, it looked like a major victory for Prince Harry and the Invictus Games. But at the very same time, a very different story was gaining attention in the background, one involving an Invictus participant, a seriously injured military veteran, and claims that after suffering a life-changing injury connected to competition, he felt there was not enough follow-up support afterward.
Prince Harry seemed to have left Scott Snow behind. Competed in 2023 Invictus in Dusseldorf. He was injured. He was in a wheelchair that did not have restraint straps, so basically defective hardware. It drives me crazy. I mean, Prince Harry founded these games. He's the public face of Invictus. And has anyone from his office bothered to reach out to you? Has anyone bothered to, from Invictus, after that initial meeting, bothered to reach out and say, hey, let's help out here?
I never heard from anybody, to be honest with you.
That contrast is what makes this situation stand out. Harry is widely known as the founder of the Invictus Games and one of its most visible public figures. Because of that role, some critics have questioned whether enough attention is given to the experiences of individual participants once the spotlight fades.
Special Forces veteran, whom Invictus chose to feature in its official Team Canada promotional video. So this guy's a big deal, right? He really, really matters. Scott Snow, a brave hero, somebody that's obviously had awful trauma as a result of war, because if you don't know, Invictus is a brilliant idea on paper. It's veterans, people that have fought in war or in a military context, and they've either got physical or mental injuries or both. And it's an amazing thing because what Invictus does, it gives them focus.
By the time this veteran competed in the games, he had already undergone extensive medical treatment. Even with those challenges, he chose to take part in the competition, describing it as an important personal milestone and an opportunity to represent his military identity in front of his family.
Harry, we are told, has been deafening in his silence whilst this guy is seriously ill. Maybe Harry should call Scott Snow on the occasion of this great Time magazine honor.
And that gap between global recognition and an individual's personal experience is where this story really begins.
Time magazine, which is an iconic magazine, has made a massive mistake. They fed the monster of Harry's ego and named him in their inaugural Time 100 sports list, placing him, wait for it folks, at the top of the leaders category. What were they thinking?
The Invictus Project has received widespread praise for its mission of using sport to support rehabilitation, confidence, community, and recovery for wounded service members. Supporters point to many positive stories that have emerged from the games over the years. However, critics argue that when they examine the financial reports, spending figures, and organizational structure, they see a different picture.
What really bothered me was this is all a PR play.
It is such an honor to be here tonight, celebrating all of you and supporting my husband in the Invictus Games, which he founded.
Some question whether the event has become increasingly focused on branding, public image, and large-scale production rather than the direct support they expected to see for veterans.
He went to Germany, competed, and here's what happened, folks. He was horrifically injured. And then the organization that used his story to sell the games stopped returning his messages.
So the question many people are asking is straightforward. Is Invictus still delivering exactly what supporters believe it was created to do? Or has the organization evolved into something very different from its original vision? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Another issue that keeps coming up involves the origins of Invictus itself.
The games were born more than a decade ago from a promise that I made to myself. A promise to uphold my obligation, a sacred obligation after my own decade and privilege of military service, to do whatever I could to help my fellow brothers and sisters heal, and to champion everything that we stand for.
Prince Harry is widely recognized as the public founder and the face most closely associated with the games. However, some analysts point out that the project's early development also benefited from broader institutional support, including assistance from royal foundations and established networks.
Don't you give him credit for the Invictus Games. The royal family started it with money William got from a lawsuit that William won. He donated money to start the Invictus Games. That's what people said in the comments. I don't know. Don't get mad at me if I'm wrong about that. And then they turned it over to Harry to give him something to do.
That doesn't necessarily take away from Harry's role, but it does add another layer to the discussion about responsibility, ownership, and public expectations. There is also increasing debate surrounding sponsorship trends.
Boeing was the huge sponsor. The contract has ended and they are not re-signing. So Harry has to go to Birmingham this summer. He has to drum up some sort of business because at this point, A, it's just embarrassing. And B, yes, government funds are supposed to cover about half, but the other half are supposed to come from private companies and private individuals, and nobody's dropping a dime anymore.
And when you start connecting all these pieces together, one word keeps appearing over and over again: transparency. In some cases, important financial details, including the exact value of certain licensing arrangements and fees, are not fully disclosed in public summaries or appear partially redacted in official documents. That doesn't automatically prove wrongdoing, but it does leave room for questions, speculation, and continued scrutiny.
So, and then they have these quotes from Harry. Time magazine does, Invictus gives them their identity back. What? What? And then he says it saves lives.
Well, she's big on saying that. I mean, look at all the lives Meghan saved by buying jeans.
Oh, God.
Meghan's role is different, but she remains an important part of how the story is viewed by the public.
I just wanted to thank all of you for welcoming me into the Invictus family.
She is not involved in the day-to-day operation of the games, yet her appearances, media coverage, and association with Harry place her within the broader public narrative surrounding Invictus. That visibility naturally increases attention from both supporters and critics alike.
She was absolutely loving all of the attention, but the problem is no one wanted her there.
Yeah, no one wanted her there. Reports were coming out even before the games that they did not want her there because usually the attention is taken away from, the veterans.
When Meghan appears at events connected to Invictus, the spotlight grows even larger. Suddenly, the project is no longer viewed only as a veterans initiative, it also becomes linked to a globally recognized celebrity and royal-adjacent brand. And that's where the tension starts to build. Supporters argue that Harry and Meghan bring valuable visibility, fundraising opportunities, and international awareness to causes that might otherwise receive less attention.
I am truly so grateful to be a part of this with each and every one of you. I've witnessed the most amazing support networks that surround competitors, and I've had the privilege.
Critics see it differently. They worry that when a humanitarian project becomes closely tied to high-profile personalities, the focus can gradually shift away from the beneficiaries and toward the public figures representing the brand.
And out of these Invictus Games because she's turned them into a laughingstock internationally.
A lot of people did not want her to be there.
Meanwhile, the next Invictus Games are already scheduled for Birmingham in 2027. And this is where the financial debate could become even more intense. The UK government has reportedly committed up to £26 million in public funding toward the event. That's taxpayer money.
The public's taxes footed a portion of the bill. According to tax returns on file, the public picked up half the tab for Vancouver.
The city has faced major financial challenges in recent years, including declaring bankruptcy in 2023 before later exiting that status in early 2025. Because of that, the decision to commit tens of millions of pounds in public funding to a large international event is already drawing attention and raising questions.
I mean, we are broke. We're broke. And what, he's got £4 million worth of sponsors? I mean, Paula, what else is he doing?
And that's not the only issue being discussed. Reports suggest sponsorship support is more limited than in some previous editions. Around 11 sponsors have reportedly been confirmed, with an estimated combined value of roughly £4 million. By comparison, earlier games, including Vancouver, reportedly benefited from broader corporate backing and a much larger network of partners. So the financial picture looks different today.
This is basically a PR play for Harry because he's about to go to Birmingham right now, drum up some business, because right now he only has $4 million in unnamed corporate sponsors for the 2027 games, and he needs a lot more. He needs about at least 25 million more to match the government's 29 million pounds.
Government funding covers a significant share. Corporate support appears smaller. Private sponsorship seems thinner than before, which brings us to the question many people are asking. If that's the case, who is really paying for it and why? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy breaking developments, exclusive updates, and the latest Sussex news, make sure to subscribe to Hollywood Yesterday. We bring you new videos every day covering the newest headlines and stories as they unfold.